happen is we need to let educators be the people that design what goes on in a classroom. They're the people that know best. And we've gotten away from that because we think everything can be run like a business, and we think children are widgets that don't, you can just go in and manipulate. I don't think they have any idea what these classrooms around Florida were like today. These children were stressed out all weekend. They probably had to go to bed early last night. The parents got up extra early to fix a nutritious breakfast to get them to school. They went in nervous to take these tests, and then they sit there and they wait an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours before the decision is made. That they're not going to take the test today, maybe they have to take it tomorrow. The parents don't understand the technology needs are not there, so children have to be shifted to different classrooms to take these tests. So the whole school is disrupted for these tests, and it's not something you can say, well, we'll go back at 3 o'clock and test. Children don't test well in the afternoon, so there's just so much to it that the people who are designing this system now, as it is, are clueless about.
You're referring to the problems in the state tests are having today with the Florida Standards Assessment exams. All over the state there are problems today, just like there were about a month ago or so. And that they're just having issues with that today, and some of the tests were suspended.
Well, and Pam Stewart says that they made technical changes, the testing company made technical changes over the weekend that, I'm sorry, that's just not a good enough excuse. They were told the system wasn't ready, and they did it anyway. They just plowed ahead, and look what's happening. It's falling apart. You would think after what they've been through the last few years with the writing assessments, remember when they kept changing the cut scores? They need to throw out this whole accountability system, the A to F grading. Do you know how that impacts property values in your neighborhood? If those test scores aren't accurate, your neighborhood could be impacted if they give you a bad grade. And the tests are not accurate. They're not a reflection of anything except what they determine in Tallahassee for any given day is going to be the standard.
Let's go back to the phones. You're listening to Susan Smith. She's an educator and the president of the Democratic Progressive Caucus of Florida. My name is Sean Kinane. You're listening to MidPoint. It's 12:42 in the afternoon, and we have Pat in Tampa on the air. Hi, Pat. Very good. It sounds like this is Pat Kemp, who's running for county commission and a former Last Call host at WMNF.
Looking for hope in here because it just seems so overwhelming, and I know that you're fighting the good fight, and there's a lot of people up there that are doing the right thing and bringing this stuff up to the light. You had said that the testing wasn't tied to anything, but as I understand, the testing is tied to poverty rates.
Well, there was a bill a couple of years ago, and I don't think there is anything similar this session. If there is, we haven't seen it. To do a pilot program in a school, I think Miami-Dade was the suggested area, to do wraparound services at one of the low-income schools in that area. And what they would do is they would provide health services for the children, eyeglass. They would buy glasses for children, give them eye exams, dental exams, after-school programs, tutoring programs, more community-based help. Our schools, when I grew up, and probably when most everybody that I come across in daily life, we lived in neighborhoods. We went to our neighborhood school, and at least anybody over a certain age. You didn't, the community kind of looked after everybody, and there was value in the public school system. The small government crowd has tried to destroy that value that we think the majority of people in this country still share. That the public schools are a value that we should treasure and we should support, and we should want the best for every child. And they just don't care anymore, I don't think.
Thanks for your call, Pat. I want to move on.
And thank you for all the nice things you said, Pat. Thanks.
Thanks.
Okay, one more time, 850-488-7146, and then hit option 1. I think you can leave a message.
Thanks for that call, Pat. We have Jefferson in Carrollwood. You're on the air, Jefferson. Oh, sure.
It's about the progress that we can and the development of children, but it seems that there's a challenge for the resources. How much money the 67 counties are appropriating for the schools, and I'm curious if you, Susan, has an opinion. Is there any room to improve the in-classroom results by possibly
All right.
Well, there's no doubt that our schools are underfunded. Sorry, technical glitches there. Anyway, our schools are underfunded. If you look at national funding, Florida has always been ranked near the bottom. Even when during boom times, when we had like a raging economy, our schools were underfunded compared to the rest of the country. So we definitely need more money in the classrooms. Teachers still end up paying for a lot of the supplies they use. I think it's even been cut more lately, the resources that they have. We are talking about spending more money on technology, which is a good thing as long as it's used wisely. I'm in favor of honoring the class size amendment. They're trying to get around that again. I know a lot of people complain about the way it's been instituted and the laws around it. They want more flexibility. What they're trying to do in a lot of cases is undermine it. Because they do it in the name of, like, if a family moves in and the class is full, then that second child will have to go to another school. Well, that's bogus in my mind. And then they say the school districts will pay a fine if they don't meet the class size. Well, if anybody's going to pay a fine, it should be the state legislature, because they are responsible for funding the public schools. That is in our Constitution, and they really need to honor that by doing their job and fully funding a high-quality public education system for every child. That's their legal, sworn duty when they are elected to office.
So a school-wide average class size is inferior, in your opinion, to what's in the Constitution, which is each individual class should have a maximum of this number.
As a former teacher, I will say yes, absolutely. One child makes a difference. When you are in a classroom of children, one child either way can make a big difference. And I know people who haven't taught don't believe that, but it's true. Now, it depends on the subject matter. If you're in a high school class and you're doing a different kind of instruction. But I still think to have that one-on-one teacher-student relationship, you need small classes. And I get that it can be a problem, but that's because we don't make our schools the priority. They should be the priority. There are a lot of corporations in Florida that do not pay their fair share of taxes. And if they did, we could have a better, more fully funded school system.
Our guest is Susan Smith. She's an educator and the president of the Democratic Progressive Caucus of Florida. And in just a minute, I do want to bring up a couple of the bills that are controversial bills that are happening this week in Tallahassee. But let's stick on this education topic for now because I think people are really interested. We have a text from the area code 917 that says charter schools do not produce superior outcomes despite motivated parents and a self-selecting student body. Ergo, they are per se inferior, is what this person is texting from the 917 area code. I'll let you comment on that in a little bit if you'd like, or why don't we just move on right now, though, to Dawn in Brooksville. Hi, Dawn, you're on the air.
Hi, Dawn. Good. Thank you. I've seen examples of it. I am not in the classroom now, but I have seen some of those examples. I think that one of the things I learned when I was teaching was sometimes kids aren't ready for the actual concepts behind things. Sometimes you need to memorize a few things. You need to memorize your number facts, and then you do the problems, and you do the problems, and then the concepts come a little later when your brain is ready for it. Children don't come in one size fits all, and if you've got 8 children, you know that better than anybody. They are not alike, and you may have a child that grasps a concept at the age of 5 and another child doesn't grasp that concept until they're 8. And what Common Core did when they wrote it, they started at the top and worked their way down. So there is no flexibility once you drop down below 3rd grade or something. These kids are forced into this this agenda, for lack of a better word, that somebody decided they had to fit into, and it's not developmentally appropriate for children. As a child development person, that's my biggest argument with it. There were no early childhood people on the committees that wrote these tests, none. Mm-hmm. Exactly. There are also criminal penalties for talking about these tests. Teachers aren't even allowed to talk about them. They're not even going to get the results of these tests until December next year, because the tests have to be vetted, because that was in the testing bill this time. It's I have a friend who works in the school system. These lessons are scripted. The teachers have to say word for word what the script tells them to say. This is not the way we have an innovative, creative workforce moving into the future. So I'm not sure. Private schools, the school Barack Obama sends his kids to, don't use Common Core. They don't use these standardized tests. The schools that Arnie Duncan's kids went to in Chicago, I think they all went to the Chicago Lab School or something. Those schools don't use these tests. The schools, the legislators, the Senate, the people who are rewriting No Child Left Behind right now, most of their kids don't go to public schools. They go to private schools where none of this stuff applies. And that's not right. It's not fair. They shouldn't be making laws about things they don't understand.
Dawn, thanks so much for that call, and we're going to go back to the phones in just a minute and to talk more about education. But before, we only have about 3 minutes left in the show. I want to get, Susan, your opinion. You're the president of the Democratic Progressive Caucus of Florida, about the adoption bill in the Florida Senate, the abortion 24-hour waiting period in the Florida Senate, and then in the Florida legislature for both of those, and then the Senate race in 2 years. So what can you tell us about those two bills?
In 3 minutes,
Yeah,
here we
12
go.
or less.
Okay. The abortion bill is the 24-hour delay. It's coming up at 1 o'clock today in the Senate Rules Committee. We can stop it in this committee. Get on the phones right now to your state, to the members of this committee. It would require women to go to a doctor and have an ultrasound 24 hours before having an abortion, and then she would have to go back 24 hours later. 73% of Florida counties do not have an abortion provider. So women have to travel. They have to take time off from work. Most women who have an abortion already have a child, so they have to find child care so they can make this trip. It's an impediment women shouldn't have to deal with. Women can make up their own minds without being having this paternalistic attitude towards them.
And
adoption, the adoption bill is also up today at 1 o'clock, and that would allow adoption agencies to discriminate against gays and lesbians when it comes to adoption. When we privatize our public services, like we have the adoption business, we're handing it over to private entities to do. They have to follow the law. This is clearly unconstitutional by the Establishment Clause and by the No Aid Clause of the Constitution, of the Florida Constitution. So it's clearly unconstitutional, and we also want to see are we done with that one? We're going to be a laughingstock, just like Indiana, if we pass it. And if it gets to the floor, who knows what will happen. Today, we have a chance to stop it. Okay, and then last but not least, Ellen Grayson.
I was going to play a sound clip if Charlie,
go ahead.
Yeah, this is Ellen Grayson on Democracy Now! Last week.
We are not endorsing yet in this race, but we have a draft Alan Grayson Facebook group because we would like to see him get into the race so the policy positions can be fully debated on the Democratic side. It doesn't work well when we are told who our candidate's going to be, when it's a coronation as opposed to, to a real choice on the part of the voters.
My guest today has been Susan Smith, an educator and also the president of the Democratic Progressive Caucus of Florida. Thank you for joining us on WMNF MidPoint today, Susan.
Thank you, Sean. I enjoyed it.
Thanks to everyone who called and emailed and texted. If you'd like to leave a voicemail with your thoughts, call me at 813-238-8001, extension 114, and I'll play the message on air. You can also join the conversation online at WMNF.org/.